Although he died more than 400 years ago, Giorgio Vasari's impact on art is still unmatched. His great book, The Lives of the Artists, is the Bible of art history, a monumental encyclopedia of hundreds of painters, sculptors and architects, spanning more than 300 years. Vasari told the story of Italian art in 3 parts, as an epic journey from darkness into light. And at its culmination was Michelangelo, art's messiah. With The Lives, Vasari created art history, the modern notion of the artist, and even the very idea of the Renaissance. In the final part of his great work, Giorgio Vasari brings his story of art to its crescendo. He writes about the Renaissance greats, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, the divine Michelangelo. But he also brings the story into his own lifetime. These people were his contemporaries, so suddenly the master storyteller has got scores to settle, friends to reward, enemies to punish. And at last, the shadowy figure of Giorgio Vasari himself, the man at the centre of this web of fabrications, comes fully into focus. Vasari argued that Renaissance art had developed out of the barbarism of the Dark Ages. He believed that artists of his own period, the 16th century, had surpassed the achievements of ancient Greece and Rome, and he celebrated above all the achievements of 3 titans: Leonardo, Raphael, and Michelangelo. But he didn't just trumpet the glory of his golden age, he judged it too. "I have striven not only to say what these craftsmen have done," Vasari writes in The Lives, "but also to distinguish the better from the good and the best from the better." Anatomist, musician, botanist, engineer, architect, and of course painter, Leonardo da Vinci was the archetypal Renaissance man, and Vasari's first great hero of the Golden Age. For Giorgio Vasari, the final culminating phase of the Renaissance begins with Leonardo, and there's no better place to look at Leonardo with Vasari than here in Santa Maria delle Grazie, where we've got the Great Last Supper, the only one of Leonardo's monumental works that survives from Vasari's time. Now, what did he see when he looked at it? Vasari tells us that what Leonardo did, his great innovation in creating this picture, was to express and unfold the anxiety felt by all of the disciples, as Christ says, "One of you is to betray me." And Vasari spends a lot of time talking about that sense of interior emotion that Leonardo expresses on the faces and in the hands, in the bodies. We're not in the world of theatre, we're much more in the world of cinema, the world of the close-up view of the face trembling with emotion. And even though Leonardo's work is so wrecked by time, you can still feel that sense of emotion that Vasari responded to so strongly. It's almost as if by saying this, "One of you will betray me," by making that announcement, Christ has, so to speak, dropped a pebble into the communal pool of emotion. Leonardo studied wave motion, and it is almost as if the emotions ripple out from that central figure of Christ. In many ways, Vasari was very much not on home territory when discussing Leonardo, because it's hard to imagine an artist further from Vasari himself. Vasari never, ever, ever left a work unfinished. He prided himself on getting the job done. Vasari was obsessed with climbing the ladder to fame. Leonardo was the opposite of that. He was a speculative thinker. He wasted years of his life, in Vasari's terms, on meaningless hypothesis, speculation, experiment. Vasari was amazed by the way Leonardo took ages over the smallest detail. But he also recognized that this was key to Leonardo's originality. What it goes to the heart of is this idea, as Vasari says, of the artist who just thinks. He thinks for several days and then the perfect brushstroke. It's conceptual art in the 16th century. Nowadays, Leonardo is one of the most famous figures in all of world history, the epitome of the obsessive genius. But it was Vasari, more than anyone else, who fixed that figure in the popular imagination. And not only that, Vasari's life of Leonardo contains perhaps the most famous of all the stories in all of the lives of the artists. Mona Lisa being very beautiful, says Vasari, Leonardo always employed persons to play or sing, and jesters who might make her remain merry. And in this work, there was a smile so pleasing that it was a thing more divine than human to behold. The tale of the Mona Lisa is the classic example of the power of Vasari's storytelling, the way in which he didn't just record art history, he transformed it. In fact, you could go so far as to say that it was Giorgio Vasari who turned Leonardo's most famous portrait into the world's most celebrated painting of an enigmatic smile. Yet Vasari had also been careful to remind his readers of Leonardo's failings, his capricious nature, and tendency to leave works unfinished. It was a way of just tipping the scale in Michelangelo's favour. Vasari also tells the story of an actual competition between the two artists, which took place in Florence in 1505. The city had wanted to commission two great battle paintings by Leonardo and Michelangelo. Each prepared a gigantic sketch